initial meeting of the Director Search Committee of the Coffee County School Board. It is December 4th, 2024, 2 o'clock, and we're ready to get going here. We have Mr. Hansert, we have Mr. Ballard, we have Mr. Gilly, and we have Dr. Powell here. Ms. Jones is probably going to be absent due to her husband's hospitalization, so we're just going to go with what we have here. So we have the agenda. We're going to look at the director search, and that's going to be our number one. Then we're going to look at the contract. We're also going to look at director qualifications and the policy. So that's really our agenda for today. So I guess initially we want to look at the TSBA levels, and we talked about this in our work session also, but I guess what we're going to vote on in the board meeting coming up next Monday will be whether we want to go with TSBA and then what plan. Plan 1 is $3,000. Plan 2 is $7,500, and Plan 3 is $15,000, and it's various levels of service. And I would basically yield the floor to Ms. Melson to see, basically how
Where's the money?
Where's the money? Always the question, right?
So we have some places within the Board of Education section that we could do a budget transfer
Okay.
for any of these three options.
Okay,
We always, put a little bit more into the trustees commission and some other, like travel and some other areas. So we do have sufficient funds at this time to,
Okay.
whichever the three
Okay.
options you were to choose.
all right.
And that would be a budget transfer, and Dr. Powell would sign it.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that, we don't saddle you with something and say, we're going to do this, and then you have to
If it
do a dance to kind of come up, figure out where the
came to
money's
the
coming
end of
from.
the school year and I needed to do an amendment on one of the lines I'd pulled from, then it would be
Right.
just part of my normal
Right.
process. So
Yeah, but
at
we
this
just,
time, we are okay to do, I think we could find the funds within the budget
all right,
right now
so
to
the
do
funds are
any
there.
of these three options.
All right, so any of the three options.
None of these special permissions from down the hall required.
It would
right?
be a Dr. Powell signature, the
Okay.
budget transfer.
All right, excellent, then we're good, so.
We just
All right.
need a recommendation to send to the board,
Right,
probably from the majority here,
yeah, on
of
which one
which
we want
level
to do.
and which
So-
level of participation.
And I think, we were looking at probably levels either 2 or 3, based on the documentation, that getting all our i's dotted and our t's crossed, I guess, and keeping all the paperwork is.
If I can go first,
Go ahead.
I guess you're chair, I don't even know who the chair of the committee is.
I think I am, but,
All right, good.
it's a committee meeting, so it's less formal, so.
I'm anxious to hear from other opinions around through here, but I'm all about all the records we can get on this, all the backing we can get, all of basically the box that helps make the decision rather than individualized thoughts. Obviously, we as the school board are going to have the final say. A lot of people, the 15,000 and if you did the highest level and you flip over a page and there's also the first year evaluation for an additional 1,500 where
Yeah.
they will really help work that first evaluation to make sure things line up with what they're insuring, because basically the Plan 3 and the 15,000, you get an insurance policy with TSBA as well
Right,
from their background checks and things that they've helped do, that we're going to be strapped for time if we try to take those kind of chores on.
right. I would agree with you. I think the
I don't think
evaluation.
15,000 and 1,500 is out of line for what we're tasked with trying to
Yeah,
accomplish for this system.
And I think the additional 1,500 would probably be in next year's budget anyway, so we kind of can make room for that as we do the budget planning, but.
And again, too, I agree with Robert, because this is, that in the box there, that guarantee for 2 years, if something should happen in the 2 year, you know, they don't charge us
Yeah,
anything.
you'll know if
It's exactly
you
right.
messed up or you
Yeah,
didn't.
that's exactly right. The
Real
the
quick.
cream will come to the top in 2
Yeah.
years, so it, you know, it says, you know, the board, additional candidates may meet established criterias. This service will be provided without charge, so for 2 years. So I tend to agree with Mr. Gilly on that, so.
Yeah, nothing like a guarantee.
Absolutely.
I think the benefits and the records we have, the depth we have, I think it's,
Is Ms. Grissom said, you know, down there in the meeting that me and Mr. Ballard went in, they have sources able to find things that we won't never find. They have the criteria and of the stuff that they're looking for. At first, I was, you know, all for, you know, the first plan there, but after going back and then looking at everything, the second time, providing all the services that they're gonna provide, the guarantee and, the annual, you know, the additional cost for the superintendent evaluation, again, I agree with Mr. Gilly. I think that would be a good step, and, because we are so short on time.
I think if you noticed on page 8 of the memorandum there from TSBA, it talks about the search time, and it's got 16 weeks maximum. And if you start this in January, that would get you through in enough time. If you get a director that would be coming here from somewhere else, he would have enough time, or she would have enough time to contact their board if they're on a contract now with the Board of Education. If you start this in January, April would get you through April, and you've got May and June to get them on board July 1, if
Right.
that's the will of the board. But, you know, and this doesn't necessarily have to, it's got like 1, and it's got 2-3, 5, 8, so forth. So this is probably a maximum time, I would assume. And I have never been involved with a TSBA search, so I don't know all the ins and outs of
Yeah.
it, I'll be honest with you. But the time frame, I think, would get you someone in here, if they are employed now somewhere, whether it's in Tennessee or Georgia, Alabama, wherever it may be, that would give you enough time to get those folks on board, or at least let them know that you're gonna hire them. They would have enough time to inform their board if they're working now with their time off. They would have enough time if they have to move here to get their moving done and all that stuff. So I think if you get started in January, the time frame would get you through about mid to late April, and that would still give you
Yeah.
May and June to get him here on board on July 1, if that's your intent.
Well, I would think that, you know, if we approve everything in the, as expected in the December, the board meeting next Monday, that we'd probably at least get stuff going in December. Now, I understand you got the holidays, and so there's not gonna be a whole lot done, but we can at least get some of the initial stuff
Yeah,
done.
I think if
So,
you get it approved in December, you would be ready to start in
yeah,
January.
Yeah, realistically,
Hit
yes,
the road running in January.
yeah.
As I understand this process.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's right. So they can get the portal set up and all the stuff they need to do, and we can be ready to roll, you know, beginning of January or,
From what I understand in this, they will show you any applicants that they have. I think that's part of something I read in here, wasn't it, Robert? Where any applications they have, our board would have access to those. They just wouldn't give us, say, well, this is the 5 people we want you to look at.
right,
If you got 15 applications from them, they would give this board all 15 applications,
With
as
a
I understand the
recommendation.
process. And
With
here,
a recommendation.
Right.
They did say, Tammy did say, if we supply 15 packets to you
Yeah.
that week that have come in, we'll probably do a little preliminary vetting of saying, you might want to look at just these 3 or 4 or 5.
right.
Really
Or if
close.
they give you 10 and.
But ultimately, it's
Yeah.
our decision
Yeah.
of,
and they would
Yeah,
give you
that's what-
recommendations, I assume,
Yeah,
as
she
to who
did
they
say
felt
that.
like would be viable candidates for the position that we have here.
Right.
And that round robins to the, you know, the information in which we can keep and have on hand that they've gathered, we've gathered, everybody's gathered, that kind of goes behind the decision once it's final,
Right.
that I think is worth the money.
So are we leaning towards Plan 3 then to recommend to the full board? So-
Mr. Chair, I think I am, but I would like, if you had a few minutes to hear from some of the other people, maybe see what they're kind of thinking
Sure.
as far as that goes.
Yeah,
Because that is I know it comes down to this committee to recommend something to the board, but I'd like to, that's what this process is, and that's the whole part of picking Plan 3 is we really open the door for stakeholders, employees, everyone in the community to have some kind of involvement in this.
exactly. And I like that. But, you know, trying to handle that ourselves, I think would be
I
challenging.
can't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was almost late for a reason, you know, so, you know, again, I agree with Mr. Gilly. Is from my perspective as part of the committee, I agree with going with Plan 3, again, with the time limits that we have. As Mr. Powell appointed, you know, as he said a while ago, you've got a 16-week search. You know, there's things that screening the candidates, investigation and evaluation of candidates, presentation and recommendation, you know, to the school board. School board interviewed candidates, school board focused on candidates at the time of conduct an in-depth research check. We don't have time to do that. That's just, you know, 8 criteria activity things that they're gonna do in that, as Mr. Powell, you know, said a while ago. So I as a, you know, part of the committee, I recommend, but I do agree with, Mr. Gilly again on letting, our community and people have a say-so, because we've been down that road, and we're not trying to hide anything from anybody anymore. We're
And
just,
have
not that
have
we
the
were.
record of it.
Exactly.
That we did.
Yes, sir.
so I guess what I'm hearing is Plan 3 is probably the way, what we want to recommend to the full board.
Of course, you've got on the 11 and 12, you've got systems that have used TSBA for searches.
Right,
And I know some of you may know some of these contact people in the community. Some of them are close, some of them are not very close to us. But, you know, if you want to contact any of those folks, you've got numbers here to call them and see what their feelings were, you know, about how they felt about the TSB search.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never been involved in one, so I can't give you any
Yeah, I think
expertise involved in it.
she explained those names
Yeah.
as those were directors that they found for these systems.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And then this is the board chairman over here. But
Yeah.
if, you know, if you need
Yep.
other phone numbers,
chairmen
we
you
could
could
probably
reach out
find that
to
for
and-
you. Yeah.
yeah.
It appears to be a lot of them, and I don't see, from just glancing at these systems, I don't think none of them are currently looking for one.
Well, we,
So I think they're
yeah, at the
well stuck.
TSBA convention, Scott and I talked to the guy from Milan, and
Yes,
they're
sir.
just finishing up, and they were very happy with.
Yeah.
And I also talked to somebody from Rutherford, and they were pretty happy with the
How
service they've gotten.
TSBA worked out.
Yeah.
Highly,
so-
highly recommended them, didn't it, Mr. Bishop, you know?
Mr. Cordell?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I talked to Ed Torres different times on this, and I also checked with, Pat Welch over at Oklahoma. They used him for their 2020 appointment. They were very, very pleased. And, also I talked with, Glenn Forsey, who's been a board member in Fairfield County over 20 years. And he said they've used TSBA twice.
Okay.
And they gave a really good report.
Right, I think we're on the track here of where we are, but like I say, I would like to hear a few more opinions if anybody's got one.
Well, you got
You got
board
an opinion?
secretary opinion? I'm looking for your boss. Ms. Nelson?
Let me hear from you.
I have nothing. There was a list that came out today from TSBA. Let's see where it's at. It had a list of all the directors that that has finished the director search. So it's in your emails. So
Yeah,
there's a
I
list of
seen that.
names that, of people that are nearby that might be
So
interested.
they're already kind of throwing some names. As far as the process, how do you think about what we're choosing here with opportunities and records and in-depth and expanding the horizon and,
I've never been through this, but, I mean, I think we'll be fine.
Well, if we did it ourselves, you would be buried in paperwork.
Well, I think
Yeah,
everyone would be buried in paperwork.
yeah,
You know, you folks would have to come up here every other day to look at resumes, if that's what
Yes,
you're
sir.
wanting to do.
yeah,
And then you'd have to get together with all those and share them and so forth.
Yeah.
TSBA's doing, you know, a lot of this work for you, which you folks could do, but it would be a heavy burden on everybody to get up here and do all this.
scheduling town halls and
Yeah,
meet and
Yeah.
greets and public things
and even getting you folks together on it,
and even getting surveys
yeah.
yeah,
out and getting things of that nature.
right. And they got stuff that, they got templates and all that stuff that they, yeah, so they can bang it out pretty quick.
How about the peanut gallery?
Do I need to use the microphone or not? We're good.
You can talk
I
loud.
think, I think what y'all are saying makes sense. I think it's gonna come down to what they provide to the board and how the board uses what is provided to them. I think you're on the right track with the information you're gonna get, some things you're gonna get into and be able to find. But ultimately, it's what they provide to the board. It's how the board actually takes that and uses that data and that information. If the board doesn't use it, then it's useless. If you truly look at it and go through, and even though they might recommend, 3 to 5 applicants, if you don't truly look at the other ones, then you're not using the data and it's useless to you. So I think you're on the right track, other than is how you proceed with what you get.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I checked and TSBA,
You don't want to?
Coffee County reached out to them in 2005. That's the only time TSBA has provided a service in the director search for the county that they could find. But TSBA did use them in 2005.
okay, probably a little bit different service back then, I suppose, but like 20 years ago, but.
And two, if we decide that we was to hire somebody from out of town, our housing situation in Coffee County is not the greatest in the world either, so trying to find somebody, find a place to live, and so.
Well, I'm
again,
sure you will probably have applicants from Manchester, Tennessee to
Oh, absolutely around here.
California, you know,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's gonna be,
How do you foresee this, Mr. Powell?
Well, like I said, I've never been through a search like this, so I have no idea what it amounts to. But I think it would be, under the circumstances that y'all are under right now, I keep saying y'all that we're under, I think this would be the best way to go. You've got the time to do it.
It aligns pretty good.
It lines up pretty good with what your time frame is. It would line good up, as I said, with directors that may be coming in from other school systems that would have time to get their act together and be with their board, resign, retire, whatever the case may be. If there has to be some moving going on, they would have to find places to live and what have you. So,
yeah,
you know, but I think you'll have a good applicant pool. And I'm sure there's some
Absolutely.
within our county,
yeah.
Coffee County, that are gonna be
I know
looking
we've
at it.
already gotten, some people that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
interested, so. yeah,
Several.
so. Well, then, I think at this point, then what do we want to recommend to the board, 2 or 3? I mean, I'm hearing 3, but, so,
I'm, just me personally, I'm a 3. plus the evaluation.
Yeah, I think I was originally looking at Plan 2, but I'm agreeing that Plan 3 might be better just because of the level of community involvement and stuff, and that will
And
That
the
would be
help,
helpful.
the extra bodies to
So-
help do this.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with both of you, as well. Again, I was at first was thinking about one, you know, but the time-wise and even me today, we all have jobs and, trying to do this, and we took this on, as a, school board member, but there's a lot that's involved, and again, me and Mr. Ballard sitting through a session at the TSBA, and, there's a lot involved, and it would be a whole lot on Mr. Ballard too, as him being the chairman, and a whole lot of stuff that he's gotta go through, and, it's, so
That's why I'm saying
again,
it's kind of selfish on my part, but
well, I'll say it for you, so it's, you know, it's
Not my
it's
time.
it's a lot involved, so I do agree with both of you
yeah.
on number three
So, and
plan.
just the community involvement, and I'm sure Ms. Bradley would be interested in that too, having more community involvement, so, all right, so. All right, well, I guess what I'm hearing is that the direction of this committee is to recommend Plan 3 to the full board to vote on next Monday, so. All right,
Agreed.
okay, well,
And I do have the contracts already.
did Tammy send you the contracts? Okay, so
It's ready to go.
we have, yes, we will have contracts for all three, and we can just vote which one we want, and then the board will then authorize the director and the chair to sign that contract, get things going right at that point, so,
You probably just need to note a start date, intended start
yes, yeah,
date, January, whatever, to
Yeah.
release. And of course, I think that'll get into our next agenda item here of how we feel about what we're gonna release and how we're gonna release this, because we can't just necessarily tell TSBA, hey, we're starting the 10th. Well, they're gonna go, okay, with what? What
Yeah.
are we offering?
well, qualifications, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, the next item then is really, our policy, we have three policies. One is 5.800, which is just basically defining the director of schools, and so that's probably not anything up for consideration here. 5.801 is our recruitment and selection process. And then 5.802 is our policy on qualifications and duties of the director of schools. So the 5.801, I guess we can talk about that briefly, is we got to have a job description, which was 5.802, I guess. And we have that other description too that you got? Oh, the one that was in the contract or that we talked about earlier, yeah. I mean, I guess policy is really what we need to talk about here, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, can we look at 5.800? That's basically our director of schools
Right,
policy. If any, I know we're kind of bleeding out into policy committee kind of discussions, but I don't see anything wrong with that being a description of the director of schools, not necessarily his recruitment selection, and not necessarily his or hers qualifications and duties. So I think we could remove that from having to do any.
yeah. And I think this description is straight out of TCA 49-2301, yeah, so,
I don't think there's nothing to consider as far as that part goes. We know who
Yeah.
he is or she is and
right,
who they answer to.
I agree.
And I would probably think that anyone that has been in school administration that would have a desire to be a director has some idea of what you're looking for here.
Right, yeah, of
Yeah,
what,
because it's, like I say, it's coming down to the, how the recruitment and the selection. I really don't think, I really don't think there's anything there to consider. We can, because that's all what you're gonna have to do anyways in law.
TSBA, that kind
You're
of.
right, and TSBA is gonna fill in with
Yeah.
helping with the job description, timeline, process for acceptance, so,
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say too.
yeah, there's,
Most of, pretty much 2, 3, and 4 on this, policy is going to be, we're gonna defer that over to TSBA for,
Right.
as part of the
And-
process. So,
okay, so that, I'm clearing stuff out of my way as we're going.
I understand, it's kinda like, man, we need bigger tables.
Because like I said earlier, there are three things to consider. Of course, obviously, is if TSBA is gonna help. Policy 5.802, and I think that will help with the final, which is the contract.
Right,
That I think all of those, these two items that are left, 5.802 and the contract,
right,
I think you're gonna have to have by January.
yeah. I agree,
Because TSBA's gotta have something they put out there to say, you wanna come work for this?
right. Well, the job description is probably the most important thing right
Yep.
now to get this thing going. The contract,
A
you
lot
know,
of your contract stuff, I think we can clean up
yeah.
if they're in policy.
Right, and we did, I think last year, I don't remember exactly when we did it, but we did look at the contract and we did make some recommended changes. They never got memorialized, so that was, but I remember, I was on that committee at that point, so I remember most of those, so, and it was fairly straightforward, I think. I mean, it's not a really complex contract, so, but let's get to the contract and let's talk about qualifications first and 5.802. Now, Mr. Shores, I think what we're gonna have to do if we recommend changes to policy, in order to get this thing going, we're gonna have to vote to suspend policy to get the search going until we can get policy changed through policy committee and then back to the board for approval. Would that be how that process would work?
It really depends on what you're looking at to do with the policy, I believe. If you're looking at adding to the policy, asking for more than what the policy is saying, I don't think you even have to make a change to the policy.
Okay,
I think this group
Right.
can actually take and come up with a
That covers it.
higher and more
Pushes it to the
qualifications
contract-based rather than
than what is on
policy-based.
the
So,
the
yeah, that's
policy.
correct.
And take that to the board without ever really changing this.
Right.
This is your minimal.
right,
This is the minimal requirements. So it really depends on what you're looking at to make the adjustments. I think you'd be fine if you're doing more and above.
Right.
Which in my opinion, I think that's what y'all are thinking, that's what I'm
I-
understanding. You're not wanting to go less than what's here, you want to go more than what's here.
Right.
well, I'm thinking I'm thinking about, I'd like to strike number 1 personally, but, just because I think you disqualify some people. So if we struck some stuff, that would have to go back to the policy.
I would think that you would need to take it back to, yes, I
Yeah.
would think so.
Yeah,
But
So-
number 5 gives you a lot, and Mr. Powell just
Four.
pointed, or,
4.
I thought it was well, it's number 4,
Yeah.
line 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry. And it kind of goes along with what Mr. Shores was saying and everything else. Such other qualifications as the board deems desirable.
right, right.
That's broad.
That's pretty
That
broad.
means if we come in here with a contract that we want to pick somebody up, it
Yeah.
could have a whole lot more
Yeah.
requirements than policy
And
says.
we don't wanna get into what we just come out of.
Right, so that's even more reason that you don't necessarily have to get into changing this policy.
Well, I guess my recommendation would be, and what I'd like to see is to strike number 1, just because you're disqualifying some people that might be retired and haven't kept up their, and I don't know if it's really, for director, and Dr. Powell can chime in here, if it's really necessary to have a professional educator's license.
As far as the
think
state
it's
law is
law.
concerned, it says that you have to have a bachelor's degree,
Right, that's the only, yeah,
and I'd have to go look and see whether it says you have to be a licensed educator or not. I'm not sure about that, but just the fact that you've got a bachelor's degree would probably basically eliminate that particular recommendation.
yeah. But it's in our policy,
Yeah.
so we'd have to actually strike it and go through the
I mean,
policy committee.
I
if we
would
wanted to do
think
that.
you'd be looking at someone that would have an educator's license that has something had been involved in education.
Right.
But you don't necessarily have to according to state law.
Yeah. I'm just worried about, disqualifying some qualified people that might not have, a professional educator's license right now. So that's, and I know there's, some people out there that might be prospective candidates, and I know that Ms. Bradley has talked about, we've talked about some of that too. So that would be my recommendation, to strike number 1, but everything else I think is fine in here.
Would we want somebody that doesn't have a professional educator's license, though? Why would you want that? Why would you want a
Because you
professional?
might have somebody that's let their license lapse, that's retired, and, or might not be actively teaching, but might be in administration and that doesn't have that. So you're
No,
disqualifying.
just asking.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, that's
for-
my rationale there is,
I mean, that would be a question that everybody would want to ask. Well, if they don't have their professional educator's license now, why did they let it lapse to start with? And
well, they might be in administration, or they
Yeah.
might be retired, and that's kind of my thinking, or,
so they would,
or they might have, different type of educational experience,
Yes, sir.
that doesn't require that.
yes,
So,
sir.
I mean, and it's not really necessary to be a director, I don't think, unless you want them actually teaching. So,
Let me, Kelvin's gonna get a law book for me.
oh, okay.
Let me look and see if
forgot mine. I was
if it
just
says
looking.
anything particularly about it.
Left mine in the truck.
All the qualifications that I've seen over a period of time, and I think there should be maybe 3 in your packet that comes from different school systems. All of those require a professional license, but let me check and see what the law says.
Okay.
I'm almost certain that's in there for a director of schools,
Mm-hmm.
it's required.
Okay,
But don't hold me to that.
No,
Well, we'll know here in just a minute.
let's
So,
look and see, yeah.
well, It don't take
All right.
just a minute to find that out,
so
so.
can we, and I guess we could say, or you get it within, a year or something like that. If they've let lapse or something, that might be some way to do it too. I just don't want to disqualify any, otherwise qualified candidates that,
Well, I guess I would put this in this realm, and again, this is my personal opinion, no reflection of the board, okay? If I were in another profession, say at Arnold Base, trying to hire a rocket scientist, I wouldn't want somebody that had a degree in education to come in to be a rocket scientist.
right.
And I guess by the same token, if I was looking for someone that knew something about education, I wouldn't want to hire a rocket scientist for them.
That was my, I agree. That's the reason. and-
No reflection on educators or rocket
No,
scientists. either
absolutely
one.
not, but I know the people that's probably watching this, that's their first question is gonna be why would you wanna not hire somebody that didn't have a professional educator's license? So if they was out of the profession, then if they got out of it for a reason, and so, I mean, I see Mr. Ballard's point too, of, they may be teaching, but if we ever wanted to put that person in a teaching position, we ever decided to get rid of them or something and put them back in there, then they wouldn't have that, right?
No, but yeah, and the contract says that you can do a lateral transfer,
Right.
that, but. Excuse me.
Yeah, here it is, right here. It's in, number 6. The Tennessee law requires only a bachelor's, degree. However, the board may, submit a preference of a higher degree, a certain amount of experience, et cetera, when, established criteria for selection.
What is the code number on that, Scott?
That don't have a
Should be 49 two something.
TCA,
I think it's TCA 49-2-301.
301, okay.
Yeah,
don't have a. Didn't have one, does it, Miss?
I didn't see one listed on here. But this is for the TSBA.
TSBA, yeah.
See, to me, number 3 is probably, the key one, is 3 years of successful experience in school administration. That's probably key. And if you've been in administration for a while, you may or may not have your professional educator's license, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, is you don't want to
Yes, sir.
disqualify anybody there.
Yes.
You got it, I don't see it in here, so that's.
Because,
Well, that would be my only thing, is if something went south
yeah,
and you didn't wanna, you need it as bad as we need teachers at times, then we could still use them as a teacher. But if they don't have a license, then we wouldn't be able to do that.
yeah,
It'd be-
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
a multitasker guy, and, be able
Well,
to do,
I-
if you can't do one thing, then we'll let you do something else.
I see what you're saying, but realistically, you're probably, as we found out before, you're probably
Right.
not gonna move that person laterally anyway, but
Yeah.
Forgot about him.
any luck there?
No, sir. Just what TSBA has in here.
There's the minimum requirements. And then on the back, I think there's some
Okay, this
discretion.
does say, minimum job requirements, the EIA, which is Educational Instructional Act, changed the minimum job requirements for superintendent. Prior to that, the superintendent had to meet the following requirements: is hold a teacher's professional license with endorsement as a principal and/or supervisor,
Right.
hold a master's degree. Local boards may now hire superintendents with only a bachelor's degree.
So it's been
So
changed.
that that does need to be
TSBA is
straightened out,
unaware
too.
of any districts which have hired superintendents with only a bachelor's degree. But doesn't address the other things.
That could strike and then just be placed as minimum of bachelor's degree.
Right, well, yeah. So would we wanna make that
Or
change?
strike 1 and number 4. Well, no, you still gonna have to, TSBA will throw that back. They'll want you to at least post the minimum that the law says.
Right,
And not, and take out the shadow there that's hanging over that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just put what the law says, which
Yeah.
is strike that to a minimum bachelor's degree.
and then other such qualifications, so strike 1, 2, and 3,
No,
or
just change a professional educator's license.
One, yeah.
Just change 1 to a minimum bachelor's degree,
okay,
or at minimum.
But I guess the point is, are you looking for someone just with a bachelor's degree?
Well, I think
I
number
mean,
4.
I think you have the discretion to do that, just like your
Yeah.
policy's written
Number 4
now.
will give you the discretion. Number 4, such other qualifications as the board deems desirable. I think that would give us the capabilities to say, well, in this instance right here, we want to look higher.
right.
Yeah.
So do we?
But if you're going to mess with policy, I know where Mr. Powell, I kind of think what he's pointing at right here, if you're going to mess with policy and go in here and change some stuff up in policy and go through 3 readings to get it done,
It's too
set
narrow.
it where you want it, set the bar where you want
Shorten it
it.
up a little
Well,
bit.
we can get the model policy,
Yeah.
and it should be updated.
And speak to that, the board can choose to do a first and only reading, first and final, and that would be explained at
Right.
the board meeting, so.
Okay,
If you wanted to go that direction.
yeah, but it would still have to go through the policy committee for a change if we struck
Right.
things, or,
But
yeah,
that's my opinion.
And
so,
that's definitely something to talk about. Mr. Powell was just talking about everyone that he has seen, they've changed that number 1 to a minimum of a master's degree with 3 years of experience. Minimum of 3 years' experience.
so basically you're taking 1, 2, and 3 and consolidating minimum bachelor's degree with 3 years' experience?
Well, I still,
That's 2 and 3.
yeah, that's 2 and 3. So strike 1 completely out.
Yeah,
strike one completely out. I like the ability of holding on to number 4 there because you may
Yeah.
Yes,
decide you want
absolutely.
something more desirable.
Absolutely. So
But striking one plumb out,
strike one. And then, 2 would be changed to a minimum bachelor's degree.
no.
Oh,
No, it'd be, if we wanted to stay something more, I mean, if we actually want to require something more than a bachelor's degree,
so keep 2,
I guess it comes down to
strike 1,
majority, but
and keep 2,
that's
3, and
kind
4.
of yeah, that would be a recommendation, but I
Okay.
think I'm leave 2, 3, and 4 alone.
Okay, I'm good with that.
As the board deems desirable, yeah, and then we can add 2 and
Yeah,
take
that-
away with 4.
That number 2 is a master's degree in education with a preference for a doctorate degree. Number 3 is 3 years of successful experience in the school administration. And number 4 is such other qualifications as the board deems desirable.
I think that's pretty
All right.
snazzy.
Just
Well,
for-
I think you would probably need, when you put out the information to TSBA or wherever you put out to, I think you would probably, in my opinion, and I think you have 3 documents. You put this in there, Melissa?
Yes,
All right.
everybody should have.
You have, and I think I showed you at the last board meeting, and again, it's
Yes.
your discretion as to what you put in there. I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of
Yeah, we're
educa-
setting the
educated
bar.
device, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
But so you've got, most all of those have the first 3 things as we have them. And then you've got some other things that are in here that are desired that you would like to specifically see.
that fall under number 4.
Falls under number 4. And I know the 3, you have one here from Clay County, which apparently they did their own investigations and things, because there's nothing to look like any differently. The one from Milan appears to be a TSBA search.
It was.
because They made out, this is a pamphlet they've made out
Me and
about
Mr. Ballard talked to
Milan School
this
District.
guy
I
here.
think
yes,
y'all
sir.
had a copy of that. And then the third one is one from Lincoln County, which I don't know whether apparently they're doing their own search there, or at least some individual may be doing it, because it doesn't have anything in it that would relate back to what I see in the Milan District, but I don't know. That one just come available in the last 4 to 6 weeks. Director there asked that his contract not be renewed. He's ready to move on, to retire, I think, but
Okay,
anyway, apparently that is part of their contract that they've come up with. But again, it doesn't say you have to have all these things. You may not want them, you know. But I think if I were coming into a system unknowingly, that I would want to have some idea of what your expectations are.
right.
Other than having a master's degree or a doctorate and 3 years' experience.
Well, we do have,
Yeah, I think we'll get to that. I think
we have essential functions here that goes on for several
this
minutes.
is just in our qualifications. So if our qualifications, if we strike that out on number 1 there, I've only got 2 more things in this whole packet that I don't think is out of line.
Yep.
5.802 standing as the qualifications. Duties, part of that policy, those are gonna change. Number 4 there in the qualifications, such other qualifications as the board deems desirable, and then there's another section in here that basically leaves it to what the duties the board puts on it.
Right,
On them, whether that be via contract or in this policy.
Right.
Is the way I interpret that.
Yeah.
yes,
So, as far as the discussion on this policy, you know, I would like to see on line on job goal, you know, to provide leadership in developing and maintaining the best possible educational programs and services. Yes, but with success, hopefully, or consideration of success, something of that nature. Instead of just, yeah, we can make sure we just provide the programs and services, but
If it don't work,
Right.
We need to change something.
Well,
Rather than just in a contract, some kind of accountability phrase.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, the contract will spell out the, and it ties back to, the contract should tie back to the strategic plan and, which is pretty marginal, but also the director's evaluation, as well will be what we'll substitute, what we should substitute in place of the annual performance agreement is the evaluation, which has the standards at the end, which have never really been implemented, but that's,
So getting into the two little things I had is probably a moot point here. So I don't see nothing else through it, because if you go to line 14, you know, basically on the scope of responsibility, but may not delegate or relinquish ultimate responsibility for results or any portion of accountability. Contract can cover that.
right.
So your policy, it couldn't be one of those, well, your policy says such and such, and contract can't overrule the policy
right.
without us,
I agree.
you know, we couldn't get into some of that kind of jargon back and
Well,
forth.
like we said before, wording is everything.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Wording is everything. If you do not spell this thing out in the way that we mean it the way we say it, then we're gonna run into stuff that we ran into, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Well, I think if you go with TSBA, they're probably gonna have some recommendations
Yes, sir.
for you
Yes, sir.
at some point in time on the front end.
but, yeah, if we're gonna change policy though, we might as well kind of whack on some of this stuff. So you're
And
looking at,
that's, I'm sorry, Mr. Bowden.
oh, no, I'm, may not delegate nor relinquish ultimately. Yeah, I mean, that,
some language I like to hear.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's another part too that TSBA will do is they'll have an attorney look over this, the contract and.
They'll have to run,
you
yeah, the
definitely have
contract
to
and
do
this
that.
will have
Yes,
to
sir.
jive.
These policies that you're reading here came from TSBA.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's where they originated, and they've been updated from time to time from
Right,
TSBA,
Yes,
so,
sir.
and
Every
this,
year we go over them
yeah.
yeah,
and
This one was
evaluate.
actually updated in 21. For review.
all right. So really the only change on 5.802 would be to strike number 1 then, right? Under qualifications. And then there was
Where I'm
another
at.
question.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there was another question that Ms. Yinch brought up to me is there any requirement that the director reside in the county? Or-
That was what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
That's something you would need to put in your contract.
Right,
That
that would
they,
be the contract, okay.
yeah. Now, you may wanna put it on this under number 4, your requirements. But that's and
That
you've
would be a-
also got in your you should have in your contract, and of course, you won't know this till you see who your selection could possibly be. There's also in some contracts, moving expenses,
Right,
housing expenses for a
Right.
period of time.
Yeah.
You know, that's something you may not know up front until you find out
right,
who your candidates might
Right.
be looking
Yeah.
at.
Instead of the county, we may, in talking to some other people and other school board members as well, is put miles on that instead of county. Because, I mean, you can go 15, 18 miles from here and be out of the county.
right.
So
Well, rather than the.
instead of putting a county, put miles instead of, because if you have somebody that, say, they live on the other side, they live in Morrison, well, you're not gonna let them work, they're not, but, 18 miles from here, and you don't wanna let them work here because they already own a house in Morrison, or, so, or Winchester, or any other surrounding counties. I mean, you may not be, but 20 minutes from here, but, that's what
That's
I
something
would,
you have to think about.
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah,
When you do the county, you may cut out some people that you may wanna reconfigure, because we've got several that's already
Yeah, and I
are
don't-
gonna apply, and they don't live in this county, but that don't make it, but they're not very far from here.
And
Yeah.
that number 4 covers, when you start getting into contract, which is kind of where we are, right on track with getting this ready for TSBA, if we're going to, is getting into contract and compensation,
Yes, sir.
which in the contract, what we're doing there, which I guess you could look at that as being in policy, a mileage. So no matter what, at least within 25 miles or something from.
Yeah, so number 3 on the
I don't know.
contract, I mean, we can dive into the contract here in just a minute, but the residency requirement is
I
in
mean, I think
the
that could be in your
contract.
contract.
That'd be
not
in the
necessarily
contract for this
policy.
time, right, and not necessarily in policy, so policy's kind of done now.
So we got the
That
one
discussion.
policy change, so we'll send that to the policy committee for, okay,
And we've already started working on some policies, and
all right.
Ms. Westmoreland just added that to your list.
So 5.802, just strike number 1, under qualifications, renumber things, and, all right. We got that part done. Let's move on to the contract then. So there is a TSBA model contract in here, and then there's the current contract we have used, and just pointing out, speaking of residency, that is paragraph 3 in the current contract is the director shall reside within boundaries of the school district throughout the term of the contract. The contract will be immediately voided if the director does not meet the residency requirements. So we might want to change that,
Yeah,
then,
we-
is what you're suggesting.
I suggest that we change that to miles.
Okay, so many
Because
miles
it-
of,
Because we've already, you're gonna eliminate,
so
5 people already that we know that's gonna apply, but they work in this school system
Right.
already, but they
So-
don't live in this county.
so many miles of the central office or so, or,
That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what, Mr. Powell or you,
I don't have any,
because
Opinions
that
one way or
covers a
the other on
broader,
it.
that covers a broader band. And a lot of people don't mind driving here. And our housing is not, there's so many people living here now and people trying to buy houses and,
and I don't think there's any specific legal requirement that they reside within the boundaries of the district, is there? So,
not by law, it would
No.
just be
Yeah.
policy or contract is where
I
it
know
would come in.
school board members we gotta be, but
Right.
not the
Oh, yeah,
director.
no, not the director
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not your staff.
Yeah, all right.
Mr. Cordell, what do you think on that?
On distance,
Mm-hmm.
that would open it up some if we did go outside the boundary of the counties. Now, how far you go, 25 miles from the central office, I'd cross that out.
Or you could just define the surrounding counties, or say the surrounding counties or something. So
You could do that?
that would probably make it a little easier, because then you're not out there with your, map and compass,
Sure.
I know one in the-
Google Maps.
That person lives over in Cannon County.
Yeah,
That's something over the weekend, if we go with that person, that require that person had been there, I guess, all the
Yeah.
time. A year.
Well,
That require them just to move.
right. And it gets back to we don't want to disqualify anybody that might otherwise be qualified based on some arbitrary,
I just suggest surrounding
Yeah.
counties.
yeah, all right.
That would be,
Coffee County and surrounding counties?
Yep.
Okay. That,
Where was that one at?
that's paragraph 3 under the contract, the current.
Okay, residency,
It's, should be,
it's on this one.
yeah, this is the
Going
model
back in here.
contract. with
Charles
TSBA
is-
behind that one.
That's the one you have now.
Yeah, that's the one they're looking at.
Okay.
Here.
It's a sample or something, or, no,
Yeah,
this is,
page
yeah,
2.
this is the one for him.
okay,
Paragraph 3.
no residency.
That's just a board decision.
Resident.
Yeah, number 3 there, the director shall reside within the boundaries of the school district throughout the term of the contract. The contract will be immediately void if the director does not meet the residence requirements. So I would hate to lose somebody because they decided to buy a house someplace else,
Right, right, and,
So you want that to say what now?
surrounding counties
Shall reside.
in.
Coffee
surra-
County or surrounding counties,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coffee County and surrounding counties.
And,
Or surrounding counties, and,
Yeah,
or.
or counties
all right.
throughout the term of the contract.
Yep,
Now, when you say surrounding counties, are you talking about counties that are
Touch.
touched to
Yeah.
Coffee County?
Touch.
border,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
because when you say surrounding, you're
What's the
talking about the
word?
whole
Well,
state
you-
of
we talking about
Tennessee.
Middle
You're looking
Tennessee.
for, and I'm looking for that word too.
Yeah,
but I
that-
drew it- drew a
Bordering
blank.
counties, yeah.
Adjacent, yeah.
Adjacent, there you go.
Yeah.
yeah, and again,
I drew a blank.
That's the word, contiguous,
Is that, what did y'all say?
bordering,
Bordering or adjacent to, whichever term you want to use.
contiguous, I think would be
again,
the better word, yeah.
you're right, wording is everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you, we don't want to get into that, so
Yeah.
bordering Coffee County, bordering.
Adjacent to would mean they have to be touching Coffee County, is that correct?
I would think so.
That's what I would think. So either bordering or adjacent to would be
Okay,
whichever
Adjacent to
terminology you
surrounding.
wanted to use.
okay, that works.
And what, the other question here, I'm being the devil's advocate right now, but if you put that in there,
Adjacent.
if you, let me think what I was
Counties
gonna
throughout
ask.
the term of the contract.
Yeah, throughout the term of the contract, that doesn't mean at some point in time they would have to move into Coffee County, if you've got it written like that. Which you don't, that's not what you're wanting to do, yeah.
Yeah, the director shall reside within the boundaries of Coffee County or adjacent counties throughout the term of the contract.
Good.
Yeah, that
say
that
that
should
right?
cover it, right?
Sir,
That would cover it, right?
I
If-
think so.
Yeah, so, shall reside within Coffee County or adjacent counties throughout the term of the contract.
And that would open it up if you have to have he or she that doesn't even live in these counties, they could move into one of these counties.
Right.
Right.
Preferably into Coffee County, but
Right.
it may not be that they,
Especially on school mornings,
yeah,
you know, I'm sorry, especially on snow days.
yes,
If they're gonna get out and drive around, they need to be pretty close,
yeah.
you know, to be able to.
Also, what, the other thing, backing up a little bit here, is there are multiple references in this contract to the annual performance agreement, which we know has never existed. And when we had our meeting before, about a year ago, in the Directors Evaluation Committee, we changed all references to annual performance agreement to the Directors Evaluation, which should have all the rubrics and the standards, and we'll talk about that in our next meeting, but, I think that's better than having a separate annual performance agreement, since we don't have any model or anything, so, yeah, we're just about done here, so,
Well, I think we're to the point anyways of getting into the evaluation, which both of them, everything we talked about here in this meeting and then the next meeting we're fixing to do is all going to go into the development of a contract and talk about compensation and then getting input from board members
Right.
and put it together.
And
Try
one
to.
thing I failed to bring today, I do have a survey from TSBA on director salaries, both nationwide and Tennessee, and we're probably gonna wanna look at that, and I totally blew it off, I forgot to bring it. Yeah, I know,
What did you think we were doing here today, Thomas?
I don't know.
Because like I say, the compensation,
That's probably gonna be negotiated anyway, you know, we're gonna have to define some ranges, we're gonna
But I
live with.
think you need to have a salary range in
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
from
We
X,
gotta-
from
it-
X to
Alright.
Y. or
As
X
Mr.
to
Gilly
Y.
said,
A to
we,
Z, yeah.
we gotta have something, they wanna know what they're coming here for.
Because it's gonna depend, I think, on your years of experience and what kind of background you have. That would have, I think, something to do with your expense,
We
with your
need to have
salaries.
some type of range depending in,
Yeah,
a range of a price number, and then out from that, depending on, experience.
Right,
and then basically, you know, adding a complete paragraph of the, which it could still be under compensation, just more bullet points under compensation, section 4 of the performance goals.
yes, performance goals and an incentive.
Yeah.
We talked about, and we did agree,
Yeah.
last year that we wanted to include a paragraph on a performance agreement, that if you hit these goals.
Yeah,
you
certain
get-
goals, and that's
Yeah.
where, like I say, even after we leave this meeting, there needs to be we need to receive some ideas, probably,
Yeah.
somehow,
All
of
right.
what to plug in of those certain levels and something that
Right.
is obtainable, and, which I think that's where TSBA was also going to help us discuss that.
Yeah.
as part of
Right.
Booking with
Yeah,
them,
all right.
so.
Yeah.
I look for, if we do this Monday night with TSBA, I look for, Ms. Tammy probably and some more to come down and wanna meet
Very quickly with y'all.
very
Yeah.
quickly with the board.
Right, to define and
And,
get this.
probably some kind of
flyer
special
out.
called
Yeah.
little meeting or something and start saying, okay, now,
All
what
right.
all are we going to put together? And then hopefully by January, they can have that helped put
All right.
together for us.
So probably what we want to do on the contract then is maybe kick that over to a meeting in January after we've had a chance to talk to TSBA. And do we want to,
If we're going to get TSBA taking applications in January, we've got to have a contract and our policy stuff in line so that people
Well, know
have something.
what
Okay.
they're,
They
what
want
they're
to come
applying
work
for.
okay, so we want to bang this out.
I'm not
right?
gonna apply for nothing, a job nowhere unless I play it through my head if
Well,
I'm in or not.
we're obviously going to need to define the salary ranges and the other,
Yes, so
you know.
we really need to get some more
Nor do we
input.
want somebody that doesn't do that.
Right. I mean,
'Cause if-
we've got-
if
we've
they're
gotta-
not planning
we've
for
really gotta
this,
come up with something on contract and compensation, just about as quick as getting TSBA on board to do this, to ever start by January, I
Do
think.
we want to do it right now then? Or do we want to,
Well, there's only one of these sample vacancies I showed you. It has a salary that's in Clay County. Of course, they're smaller than we are.
yeah, because we're kind of
They've got
running out of time here.
between
on
70 and
committee meetings,
95,000.
so,
It says
yeah.
it will be negotiated, but that's their plus and minus. But, you know, it's,
Yeah, I
That's-
think Mr. Powell's right on it, having a range set for compensation, and then opportunities of performance-based, bonuses, and leave it at that with TSBA for right now, maybe, until we actually get those numbers, and then that opens the door for somebody we're wanting to talk to starting, well, what would sell you on these performance?
All right. So what we need to do then.
3,000 bumps, 5,000 bumps,
Maybe then for the meeting on Monday, then we have some proposals there, so we vote on TSBA, and then we're also gonna vote on these specific requirements there, so,
of what
Come.
yeah.
right.
That way you can get some debate from other board members in a meeting.
All right.
So that we can do that right. We can hear some,
I'll get that salary survey out and some example contracts to folks, and then we can
we
discuss
can
it.
have debate during the meeting Monday night, get some of those
Yeah,
answered.
yeah.
And then push the, basically a draft contract
Yeah,
out based off of discussion and what's
Right,
presented
right.
Monday night.
we can do that, yeah.
And,
And that'll give TSBA enough stuff.
something to
get
go on
Right.
that,
So we can
well,
get it
look, we need to
going,
change this
yeah.
beforehand. We may have to have a special called meeting to change something in there to be able to assemble everyone and all the board members before January.
Yeah.
But we might have to have a special call to do that, but
Are you open
we
on
can
Christmas
at
Day?
least do it right and get everybody's input and have a contract that
Right.
TSBA
Yeah.
agrees with, we agree with, and be ready for January to say, this is
All right.
what you're after, send in
think-
your application.
I'm sorry. Looking at TSBA's model contract here and the contract that I had with you, that you had with Dr. Lawson, that I had when I was Manchester City, I think everything is pretty much in here in your contracts with the exception of the moving expense and the housing allowance. I think everything else is covered in the contracts that I've seen within Coffee County and Manchester City.
Other than a performance-based
Yes.
bonus
Yeah,
idea.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
yeah, that's not, let's see though, that may,
But if we wanted to close this meeting out,
yeah,
we can, the board of it,
Okay, so you, and this, you got a performance evaluation in
can,
their
uh,
model policy.
Right,
which
your
we don't have in ours.
evaluation, you
Yeah,
got the evaluation.
right,
We can,
But as far as opportunities for more compensation
right.
for meeting certain
Yeah.
goals, if we
Those-
say a
those two you-
3% rise or a 5% rise
Right.
annually and
Move-
whatever.
Moving expense and
we
housing
can
is
close
not in
this
anything
meeting
that I've
out and
seen
then
locally.
kind of continue the discussion in the direct, yeah, I mean.
Well,
as
if
it
we
overlaps.
just push this to say that us three is sitting going to provide options to the board Monday night of contracts to consider
I think that'll be good.
that have open-ended
Right,
opportunities for the bonus to be negotiated,
I'll get that
but a
information.
range of of pay, salary pay,
Yeah.
have a range in there.
Yeah,
I think we can develop the contract everybody's gonna like.
Right.
We can have that broadened, we can negotiate and tighten it down with an actual contract
All
when
right,
we pick that individual and agree.
all right, let's do that
And
then.
we'll shoot that to,
Give me something to budget for, because budget, I'll start budget for next school year in probably January when we
that's
come back
right.
from Christmas.
That's right. So we'll have to tighten that
You'll have
up
to give me
pretty
something to
quick.
put in the
We-
budget.
Well,
to start
we're
with.
gonna need to
Probably
get
s-
that nailed down pretty quick.
Probably
yeah.
start with the highest number we come up with.
I
yeah.
will. I
Probably
Oh,
start
yeah,
with the highest
is
number
that how
we
you
come
do
up
budgets?
with and see if we can make it
how,
work.
how will that work, April?
All right,
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Be better
I've
than
been there
picking the
yet.
lowest number.
Well, I think
right.
that Mr. Ballard has some surveys of systems,
Yeah.
basically our size,
yeah,
that
I got that
would give you
information,
some,
I'll get that
that
out
would
to
give you some
everybody.
numbers to
Yeah.
deal with, to
Yeah.
play
Us
with.
three and Frida.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
Yep.
chime her into that email. We can,
All right.
everybody develop their idea that we bring Monday.
all right.
Okay.
Let's close this meeting out, and then we'll take a quick break and then move into our next meeting and get that rolling. 'Cause I got